It started with the way she kissed me. Not how it felt. I barely noticed that anymore. But how quickly it ended. A brush of lips, cold and quick, like she was checking a box. Her scent still lingered. Expensive shampoo, lavender maybe, but it didn't smell like her. Lena used to smell like warm cotton and cinnamon tea. That morning, it smelled like someone else's bathroom. "Don't forget we're out of oat milk," she muttered, eyes on her phone. I didn't answer. I just watched her thumb fly over the screen. Her face, slightly flushed, eyebrows tensed. It wasn't just a grocery list she was composing. Something inside me tightened, not all at once, but like a slow drawstring pulling the breath out of my chest. She wore that red blouse again, the one that dipped just enough at the neckline to reveal a sliver of black lace. I'd never seen that bra before, and I knew her lingerie drawer better than she thought. She was never bold with underwear unless it was for me. Once. Now. I couldn't tell. I did the dishes while she sat on the bar stool, legs crossed high, scrolling through her messages and smirking like no one else was in the room. I didn't ask who she was texting. I didn't need to. I already knew. Still, I handed her coffee like I used to, cream just right. She blinked like she forgot I was there. "Oh, thanks." She took one sip, set it down, didn't touch it again. That night, she came home late. Again. Third time this week. She didn't even try to hide it. Makeup slightly smudged, hair too perfectly disheveled. When I asked how her co-worker's launch party went, she yawned and said it was boring, then went straight to the shower. I listened through the door. I don't know why. I wasn't looking for evidence. I was listening for guilt. But there was none. I lay in bed, pretending to sleep when she finally crawled in. Her body didn't curl into mine like it used to. No foot to find mine. No whisper. She turned her back. A minute passed. Maybe two. Then her phone lit up. "Can't stop thinking about tonight." I didn't move. I stared at the ceiling, muscles rigid, the glow of her phone pulsing on the sheets like a lighthouse warning me away from the shore I once called home. She didn't reply. Not right away. Maybe she thought I was asleep. Maybe she hoped I wasn't. Eventually, I closed my eyes, not to rest, but to breathe. A choice was forming in me. Not a plan, not revenge. Something quieter. A seed. The next morning, she was cheerful. Overcompensating. She played Lizzo in the kitchen, wore tight yoga pants that hugged her curves a little too intentionally, and offered me pancakes like we were newlyweds again. "You seem tense," she said, brushing my shoulder. "Everything okay?" "Fine," I said, kissing her temple. "Just tired." She looked at me too long, like she was waiting for a fight that never came. I smiled. She didn't like that. That was when she finally said it. "I've been thinking, maybe we've grown stagnant." Stagnant? Not in a bad way. I just mean, you and I, we've been together a long time. Maybe it's time to, I don't know, explore more. I let her finish the sentence in her head. She didn't say it out loud, but I heard it anyway. I want to sleep with someone else, and I want to be able to tell myself it's okay. I nodded slow. Don't you ever feel like there's more out there?" she asked. "That we're holding each other back?" I turned, met her eyes. "Is that how you feel?" She hesitated. Just a flash. Then smiled. That patronizing kind of smile that says I've already made up my mind. "I'm just waiting for you to agree with me. I just want to grow," she said. "Emotionally, sexually, spiritually." There it was. The trinity of bullshit. She watched me like I was supposed to explode. Like I'd scream, break a glass, call her names. Maybe that would make her feel less guilty. But I didn't. Instead, I touched her cheek. "Thanks for telling me." She blinked. That's it. That's it," I said, sipping my coffee. "We can talk more after work." She stood there confused, her mouth slightly open like a door she wasn't sure she wanted to walk through. And that's when I knew she thought she won. That night, she left the house around 9:17. I heard the garage door shut and waited exactly 5 minutes before checking the security cam feed from the front door. Her red blouse was gone. Now it was a tight black tank. She looked good. Sexy even. Like she wanted to be wanted. She got into an Uber. Not her car. Smart. She didn't want to leave a scent, a trace, a receipt. But I wasn't angry. I just watched her disappear down the street, sipping scotch in the dark. She didn't know it yet, but she gave me the key. She didn't break my heart. She cracked the glass. And all I had to do was wait for the right pressure to shatter it completely. She brought it up 3 nights later. Not late at night, not in bed. No, Lena was too calculated for that. She waited until we were both sitting in the living room. Me nursing a drink, her pretending to scroll through news on her tablet. The kind of silence couples settle into when the love's gone, but the routines haven't caught up yet. I've been reading about ethical non-monogamy, she said. Just like that. Like she was reading a recipe aloud. I didn't look up. Yeah. It's not what people think. It's not cheating. It's about honesty. About growth. There it was again, growth. Her favorite shield. The noble cause for every selfish impulse she had no courage to name for what it was. I let her keep going. It's not about sex, either, she lied. Well, not just about sex. It's about needs. Emotional connections. Exploration. The idea that one person can't be everything to another forever. It's unrealistic. She was watching me now, trying to decode my silence. I could feel her bracing. For rage. Accusation. Tears. Maybe even begging. She thought this was the moment the dam would break. But I just nodded. Huh. I said, like I'd never heard of it. Lena blinked. That's it? She asked, voice carefully neutral. I set my glass down and looked at her. Not angry, not hurt. Just calm. You're saying you want an open relationship? I'm saying I want to try something new. Together. Together, I repeated. Or separately. She hesitated. I mean, it could start slow. We'd set boundaries. Rules. I let the silence stretch, then said, okay. She blinked again. Okay. Yeah. I shrugged. If that's what you need to feel fulfilled, let's talk about what it looks like. Now her brow furrowed. This wasn't how she scripted it. I was supposed to be furious. Threatening divorce. Crying. Shouting. Instead, I was reasonable. Maybe even supportive. Her confusion bloomed into suspicion. I don't want you to feel pressured, she said slowly. Or like I'm asking for a hall pass or something. No pressure, I said. I trust you. A beat. Wow, she whispered. You're really taking this well. I smiled. Why wouldn't I? She had no idea what to do with that. We spent the next hour pretending to explore the idea. I asked questions like a curious partner should. She spoke in vague, enlightened phrases she'd lifted from Reddit threads and YouTube therapists. Conscious communication. Autonomous intimacy. Decoupling of possessiveness. She used every term except the one that mattered. Permission. But I gave it. On a silver platter. Later, she went upstairs first, claiming she was tired. I followed 20 minutes later. The light was off. I heard her breathing, shallow and awake. She wasn't sleeping. She was waiting. When I lay beside her, she didn't reach for me. And I didn't try. It was quiet for a long time. Then her phone lit up, casting a soft glow across her face. She turned it quickly, but not before I saw the name. Jaden. No last name. Just that. A name I'd never heard, never seen in her contacts. She whispered into the screen, typing fast. My jaw clenched, but I didn't move. She snuck out 30 minutes later. She didn't think I heard her. Keys delicately lifted from the hook. Door closed silently. Shoes already on, jacket pre-grabbed. I could see the choreography in my head. She thought she was winning. I lay in the dark, my chest rising steady. She never once asked if I wanted to see someone else. She didn't even ask if I already had. She assumed she was the only one at the cliff's edge, brave enough to jump. But she forgot something. Sometimes, the quiet ones don't jump. They push. She came home at 2:41 a.m. I watched the clock when I heard the garage door open. I stayed perfectly still, listening to her tiptoe through the house, pausing to make sure I was asleep. I kept my breathing slow. She slipped into bed like a stranger. No warmth, no explanation, just the scent of cologne I didn't wear and that faint, unmistakable musk of sweat and sex beneath her perfume. She thought she'd gotten away with it. She even curled slightly toward me, as if pretending we were still something we weren't. I didn't speak, didn't move, let her stew in her false victory. But inside, I'd already begun drafting the blueprint. Not a fantasy of vengeance, not some rash explosion. No, this had to be long, precise, beautiful, not out of spite, out of art. If she wanted to explore openness, I would build her a house of windows. If she wanted freedom, I'd give her just enough rope to strangle herself with. And if she thought I'd crumble, she was about to learn how dangerous stillness could be. The next morning, I made breakfast. Eggs, toast, coffee with oat milk. She walked in, blinking, hair tousled, guilty and silk. You didn't have to, she started. I wanted to, I said, placing a plate in front of her. You looked like you had a late night. She froze mid-sip. What do you mean? You just seem tired, I said, smiling. Rough dreams, maybe. She didn't know what to do with that either. I watched her eat in silence, every bite laced with unease. She couldn't tell if I was clueless or dangerous. Good. Let her wonder. Let her enjoy her little game. Because I was done playing checkers. I was playing chess. And I'd just moved my first pawn. She told them everything. Or at least, the version she wanted to believe. 2 Saturdays after she first snuck out, Lena hosted a wine night with her usual circle, Madison, Ivy, and Scarlett. I'd always liked her friends, back when things were normal. Back when the laughter felt real and not like a shield they held up between each other. I pretended not to listen from the upstairs hallway. She didn't know I'd left the bedroom door cracked. He didn't even fight me on it, Lena said, like it was a punchline. There was a pause, the kind people try to fill quickly. I mean, that's good, right? Ivy said. I guess. I don't know. It just felt weird. Like, he should have gotten mad. Jealous. Something. And he didn't? Madison asked, her tone soft. Careful. Lena scoffed. He said okay. Literally. That's it. Scarlett let out a little laugh, but it sounded unsure. Maybe he's trying to be modern about it. Guys are like that now. Maybe, Lena said, dragging the word like it tasted wrong. But it didn't feel modern. It felt like he didn't care. Another pause. Another silence wrapped in wine and doubt. I slipped away from the hallway and went downstairs to the garage. Didn't say a word. Just sat there in the driver's seat with the windows down and the engine off, listening to the echo of that moment. It wasn't just her cruelty that burned. It was her disappointment. She wanted me to fight her, to scream, to prove I still wanted her by not letting her go. But when I agreed to let her go, she realized what she was leaving might have been worth staying for. That was my first move. The second? That came at midnight, when I came back inside, and they were still laughing, but now with the edges worn off. Red wine open, plates empty, candles down to their wicks. I entered the room casually, barefoot, glass of water in hand. Lena didn't even flinch. You girls have fun? I asked. Madison smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Always. Thanks for letting us steal her for the night. No stealing, I said, resting my arm on the back of the couch. I'm glad she has people like you. Scarlett tilted her head slightly. You okay, Ethan? I nodded slow. Honestly, yeah, it's been a weird couple of weeks, but I'm trying to be open, trying to grow. That got their attention. Even Lena glanced at me, like she didn't recognize the words coming out of my mouth. Open as in? Ivy asked. You know, I said, exploring, re-examining old frameworks, letting go of the idea that monogamy is the only way to love someone. Lena's jaw tensed, barely. Her wine glass didn't rise again. Madison blinked. Wow, that's mature. I don't know if it's mature, I said, with a small smile. It just is. I let the words hang. Not smug, not accusing, just calm. Let them each draw their own conclusions. Let them feel the shift in power without knowing where it started. Anyway, I said, pushing off the couch. I'll let you get back to it. I'm heading up. You're all welcome to stay the night if you need to. Extra blankets are in the guest closet. Madison's eyes lingered a little longer than the others. Not pity, not admiration. It was curiosity. That was the moment I knew. The next day, Madison texted me. Hey, I hope it's okay I'm messaging you directly. Just wanted to say, you seem really grounded. I wasn't expecting that. Lena's been kind of different lately. You okay? I waited a full hour before replying. Thanks for checking in. I'm okay. Just trying to meet the moment, you know? It's not what I imagined marriage would look like, but it's where we are. I left it open. Not needy. Not inviting. She replied 10 minutes later. That's more than okay. That's rare. Later that night, Ivy sent a message too. Ethan, can I ask something? Are you actually comfortable with everything that's happening? I didn't answer right away. I let them think. Let them talk. Let the space between Lena's version and mine widen. When the next wine night came, I offered to cook for them. Lena narrowed her eyes at me when I brought it up. You want to be there? Of course, I said. Why not? It's part of the journey, right? Building this new version of us. She didn't reply, but she didn't object either. So that Friday, I cooked dinner. Real dinner. Pasta from scratch. Roasted vegetables with smoked sea salt. A bottle of wine from the cellar I'd been saving for an anniversary that never came. Madison couldn't stop complimenting the food. Ivy asked for the recipe. Scarlett kept smiling at me like I'd told a secret only she could hear. And Lena? She watched them more than she watched me. Watched the way Madison laughed too hard at my jokes. The way Ivy leaned in when I spoke. The way Scarlett took too long to say goodbye. The cracks were forming. Not in the marriage. In the fortress of her friendship. And she didn't even realize yet that I wasn't the one swinging the hammer. They were. It was supposed to be harmless. A simple dinner. No agenda. No performance. But Lena was watching me like I was cheating at a game we both claimed not to be playing. The plan was hers. Or at least she thought it was. Let's have the girls over again, she said that morning, stirring coffee like it offended her. Now that we're being honest, we should normalize things. Let them see the new us. The new us. The version where she vanished every other Friday in tight dresses that didn't belong to our closet, and I pretended the smell of unfamiliar cologne in her hair was just a coincidence. Sure, I said. I'll cook something. Keep it relaxed. She raised an eyebrow. You want to be part of it? Of course, I replied. We're doing this together, right? That night, the kitchen smelled like garlic and rosemary. I kept the lighting low. Intimate, but not romantic. Earth-toned linen napkins, candles flickering on the table. Just enough warmth to feel curated, but not seductive. I wasn't trying to seduce anyone. Not intentionally. But I didn't have to. Madison arrived first, her smile a little too tight, her hug a second too long. This smells incredible, she said, letting her fingers graze mine when I handed her a glass of wine. Just a little Tuscan chicken, I said. Comfort food. Figured we could all use some. Ivy followed, laughing at something on her phone, but stopping cold when she saw the table. Wow, Ethan, she said. You sure this isn't a date night? Lena tensed. Just slightly. I caught it. Just want you all to feel welcome, I said. You've been good friends to Lena. That matters. Scarlett came last, wearing a dark green dress that didn't hide how much effort went into her makeup. When she leaned in to kiss my cheek, her hand pressed lightly on my shoulder. She held it there just a second too long. Glad you're joining us, she said, her voice low. Wouldn't miss it. We ate slowly. Conversation drifted between shows they were watching, vacations someone wanted to take, things that didn't matter, but everything felt charged. Like a current hummed beneath the surface of every joke, every glance. And Lena noticed. She tried to steer it, redirect attention. But when Scarlett laughed too loud at something I said, Lena's wine glass clinked against the table harder than necessary. Scarlett, remember when you said Ethan was too nice to ever make a good villain? Lena asked, arching an eyebrow. Scarlett blinked. Did I say that? You did. Last summer. Back when we played that ridiculous card game at the lake house. You said Ethan was a golden retriever in a man's body. I smiled. Ouch. Scarlett looked embarrassed. I think I said you were too kind, not too boring. Don't twist it, Lena. The air tightened. Ivy coughed softly and changed the subject. But I didn't forget it. Neither did Scarlett. After dessert, I cleaned while the girls lingered with their wine. Lena had gone upstairs to change into something more comfortable, though I knew from the sound of her voice she meant watch and control from above. Madison came to help. That was really lovely, she said, stacking dishes beside the sink. I honestly didn't expect it to feel so natural. Natural how? I asked. She shrugged. You. The way you're handling all this. Gracefully, you mean? I mean, most guys would fall apart. I met her eyes. What makes you think I haven't? She looked at me for a beat too long. You don't act like someone who's lost something. That's because I haven't decided if I've lost anything yet. Her breath caught slightly, just enough for me to hear it. I didn't press further. I just smiled. Gently. Stepped back. Later, as they all filtered out, I walked them to the door. Ivy hugged me, soft and slow. Scarlett lingered again, her hand brushing mine as I opened the door. And Madison. She turned halfway down the walk and said, Thank you again. For tonight. For being the way you are. Lena came down a minute later, barefoot, robe tied too tight. You put on a show tonight, she said. I made dinner. You're not that charming by accident. I met her gaze evenly. Why would it be a performance? She didn't answer. Because she didn't know anymore. The next day, I found a scarf on the back of a chair. Scarlett's. Or Madison's. I wasn't sure. I texted the group. One of you left this behind. Scarlett replied, Not mine. But you should do this again. Madison's response came 5 minutes later. It's mine. Don't wash it. I'll come pick it up tomorrow. I smiled. Didn't reply. Let her sit in it. Lena watched me more closely after that. She didn't say it, but her eyes said enough. She thought she opened the door to freedom. She didn't realize how cold it would feel when she stepped outside and saw me warm at the center of the room, surrounded by the people she thought would only ever orbit her. The attraction wasn't physical. Not really. It was gravity. And Lena was no longer the sun. It happened on a Sunday. A quiet one. The kind that used to mean brunch and errands and walking the dog around the block while Lena linked her arm through mine and talked about nothing in particular. Those days were fossils now, fragments buried beneath the weight of her reinvention. She didn't come home the night before. No lie. No excuse. Just silence. That told me everything I needed to know. I woke up alone and didn't bother checking the time. Her side of the bed was cold, sheets smooth. I sat in the silence for a long time, staring at the ceiling like the answer to how we got here might be written in the drywall. Eventually, I made coffee. I poured 2 mugs out of habit. Only one got touched. Around noon, there was a knock at the door. Madison. She stood there in faded jeans and a dark hoodie, hair tied up but messy, like she got out of bed too fast. Her eyes carried something between guilt and concern, and she looked like she'd been debating whether to come for hours. "Hey," she said. "I hope I'm not interrupting anything." "Not at all," I said, stepping aside. "Come in." She hesitated before crossing the threshold, like the air inside the house might carry a confession. She moved with a kind of nervous purpose, like she was afraid if she slowed down she'd change her mind. "I wanted to check in," she said. "Lena mentioned she might be staying out more. I don't know. I guess I felt like I needed to see you." I raised an eyebrow. "See me?" She bit her bottom lip. "I mean talk. Talk to you." "Coffee." She nodded. We sat on the couch, and she curled her legs beneath her like she'd done it 100 times before. Like this wasn't a turning point. "Ivy told me," she said softly, "that Lena's been staying with someone." I didn't speak. "She's not even trying to hide it," Madison went on, shaking her head. "She says it's all part of the process, but—" She didn't finish. I just stared at her, watching the guilt bloom in her posture. She wasn't just here to comfort me. She was here because part of her wanted to be. Because the version of Lena she'd known had quietly begun to rot. And now, she couldn't stop herself from comparing the two of us. Madison was loyal, but even loyalty had its breaking point. "I'm sorry," she said finally. "You deserve better." I gave a small smile. I'm just trying to hold on without holding her back. Madison's breath caught slightly. "That's beautiful. And stupid," she added with a nervous laugh. "So stupid. Maybe." "No, I mean it. She paused. "You're better than I am." I looked at her. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was thick, heavy with everything we weren't saying. Her fingers brushed mine on the couch. It should have stopped there, but neither of us pulled away. Her hand moved. Just enough. And I turned, slowly, until her face was close enough to feel her breath. "You sure about this?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "No," she breathed. "But I'm not leaving." The kiss was soft, almost timid at first, like she was waiting for me to pull back and tell her it was a mistake. I didn't. I kissed her like I'd forgotten what it meant to be wanted. Because I had. And she kissed me like she'd waited too long to admit Lena wasn't the person she thought she was. We didn't sleep together. Not that night. But her legs pulled beneath her as we sat there. Her head eventually found my shoulder. And when I reached for her hand again, it didn't feel wrong. It felt like something had shifted. She left after dark. Not in shame. Not in fear. But in silence. She didn't say what this meant. I didn't ask her to. And I didn't gloat. I didn't write about it in a hidden journal or pour a glass of scotch to celebrate my revenge. This wasn't revenge. This was gravity. Madison had fallen in my direction. And I didn't stop her. Lena came home the next morning. Keys jingling. Heels in hand. The smell of someone else's body clinging to her skin. She tried to move through the house like nothing was wrong. But when she turned the corner and saw me already awake, dressed, coffee in hand, she paused. "You're up early," she said, trying to sound casual. I nodded. Couldn't sleep. She waited. For anger. For judgment. For me to say the words "I know where you were." But I didn't. I sipped my coffee. "Have fun?" I asked. The way her mouth tightened told me everything. She was uncomfortable. Not because of what she did, but because I wasn't reacting to it. She didn't know how to hold power over someone who refused to play the game. "Is there more coffee?" she asked, moving past me. "Fresh pot," I said. She poured. She sat across from me. Her robe was too loose. Her wrist still had a faint red mark, not mine. She caught me looking at it and quickly tugged her sleeve down. Neither of us spoke for a long while. Eventually, she muttered, "You okay?" "I'm always okay," I said softly, "even when I'm not." She studied me for a moment, trying to find the cracks. But I was made of stone now. She didn't know it yet, but something broke that day. Not me. Her safety. She thought she could rewrite the rules and still be the center of the story. But Madison knew now, and I knew Madison. And Lena? She was still out there pretending her betrayal was a brave act of honesty. But when Madison looked me in the eyes that afternoon, she didn't see a victim. She saw a man worth choosing. And that was the first betrayal Lena never saw coming. Ivy showed up around 6:45 on a Wednesday evening. No warning, no text, just a knock on the door, a hesitant smile, and a bottle of white wine she clearly grabbed from her kitchen shelf in a hurry. "I was just in the area," she said, eyes flicking toward the street. "Thought I'd drop this off. You mentioned liking this one at that dinner, remember?" I didn't, but I nodded anyway. "Come in," I said. "I'm not busy." She stepped inside slowly, like she expected to bump into someone she shouldn't. Like maybe Madison would be curled up on the couch, wearing one of Lena's old hoodies and sipping red from my favorite glass. But there was no one else. Just me. And Ivy let out a breath like she didn't know she was holding it. I brought 2 glasses and poured hers without asking. She took it and swirled it more than necessary. "I don't want you to think this is weird," she said, sitting down at the edge of the couch like the cushions were lava. "I've just been thinking a lot." I waited. I knew what was coming. "She talks about you like you're broken," Ivy said, voice quiet. "Like she's doing you a favor. Like you agreed to let her leave pieces of you on other people's bed sheets." Still, I said nothing. "I didn't get it before," she added. "I thought maybe you were distant or emotionally withholding. But now," she trailed off. Her eyes found mine, and I didn't have to say a word. "You're not the one who stopped trying, Ethan," she whispered. She looked down at her glass, then leaned back. "It's not just the sex. That's not what this is about. She doesn't talk about you with respect anymore. She's different." I leaned forward, setting my glass on the table. "She's angry that I didn't fall apart," I said. Ivy met my gaze, startled. She wanted chaos. A dramatic reaction to justify her guilt. Instead, I gave her silence. Calm. A mirror she couldn't break. Ivy blinked, and something shifted. It was subtle. The way she softened. The way her knees turned slightly inward toward me. The way she finally settled into the couch like she wanted to be here now. "You loved her," she said. "I still do," I answered. "But not blindly." She was quiet for a while, then said, "She's been talking about you behind your back." I tilted my head. "Since the beginning of this whole open thing. Telling us you were cold. That you shut her out. That the marriage was over in all but name." I didn't flinch. I didn't ask for details. I just said, I loved her enough to let her explore. I hoped she'd find what I couldn't give her. Ivy blinked fast. Once. Then again. Her eyes began to shimmer. "God," she whispered. "She doesn't deserve you." I stood and offered her my hand. She took it. We didn't speak again for the next few minutes. Not with words. There was no hunger. No groping desperation. Just warmth. Human connection. The quiet kind of intimacy that makes people close their eyes when they lean in. Ivy's kiss was different from Madison's. Gentler. Less guilt. More ache. When she pulled back, she looked stunned. "I shouldn't be here." "You're already here," I said. "And you're safe." She nodded, pressing her forehead to mine for a moment longer before stepping back. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "Don't be." She left before Lena got home, but the imprint of her lips stayed longer than I wanted to admit. Lena walked in at 10:13 that night. Hair windblown. Heels in hand again. That same look of smug exhaustion. The kind of weariness someone wears after getting exactly what they wanted, only to discover it didn't satisfy them. "Busy night?" I asked from the kitchen. She froze. "Just dinner." "Alone?" A pause. "No, but that's not your business." I smiled slightly, pouring myself a glass of water. "I'm just asking, not accusing." "Are you suddenly jealous?" "No," I said. "Just interested." She squinted at me. "Why?" "Because you're still my wife," I replied. "And I'm still the man who knows how you take your coffee, even if someone else is taking you to bed." She opened her mouth, then closed it. She walked past me in silence. She didn't ask who had been at the house earlier. She didn't smell the faint hint of Ivy's perfume still lingering on the throw pillow, and I didn't offer it up. 2 days later, Madison messaged me again. Ivy's been quiet lately. Did something happen? I didn't answer. Let the silence speak for itself. The next time I saw Ivy, it was accidental, at a market downtown. She saw me from across the fruit stand, and for a moment, she looked like she might bolt. But she didn't. She walked up. Quiet. Careful. You okay? I asked. I don't regret it, she said quickly. But I didn't expect it to matter. Does it? She hesitated. Then nodded. We didn't say more. We didn't need to. Because she knew now. Madison knew. Scarlett suspected. And Lena? Lena was busy chasing something that stopped running a long time ago. That night, I sat outside on the porch and listened to the wind move through the trees. The old oak in the yard made this soft creaking sound, the same one it made when I proposed to Lena on the porch steps, barefoot, 26, and terrified. I remembered how she cried, how she said she didn't deserve someone like me. I think maybe she was right. But back then, I didn't believe her. Now, I just watched the sky and wondered how many other people saw the storm coming and stayed anyway. She started noticing the way they looked at me. At first, it was subtle, the way Madison let her eyes linger a little too long when I walked into a room, or how Ivy's laughter around Lena lost its volume, its spark. Scarlett became the most obvious. She was never great at hiding her tells. She used to lean into Lena's stories, nodding with wide eyes, smiling like everything Lena said was gold. Now, she listened in half measures, eyes drifting whenever I passed by. Her questions to Lena were clipped, distracted, as if she was no longer impressed. That was the first crack. The second came one evening when Lena called a girls-only night. I was reading in the living room when I overheard the conversation. Wait, Ivy said. Just us. Yeah, Lena replied, too quickly. I just feel like we need a reset. All the weird energy lately. I don't know. I miss how things used to be. Scarlett chimed in. Are you sure this isn't about Ethan being there last time? There was a pause. I mean, Scarlett went on. He's been pretty amazing through all this. I thought we were normalizing the new dynamic. Lena's voice tightened. We are. But I don't want him to feel awkward. That's all. I heard someone shift in their chair. You mean you don't want us to make it awkward? Madison said flatly. Lena didn't respond. I didn't need to hear more. I closed my book, stood, and walked out the back door into the quiet of the night, smiling to myself as the fracture widened. The next day, Madison texted me. That was weird last night. I think she knows something's off. I didn't respond. Not directly. But I sent back. Truth doesn't always need to be spoken to be heard. Madison left it on read. But I knew what she was thinking. That weekend, Lena tried to reclaim the air in the house. She cooked, set the table, put on her softest music, that lo-fi playlist she used to play during rainy Sundays, back when we'd lie on the couch and trade slow kisses and silly dreams. I played along. We sat across from each other, eating grilled salmon and asparagus, candles flickering between us like they were trying to remind us who we used to be. Madison's been acting strange, Lena said suddenly, cutting into her fish. Has she said anything to you? About what? I don't know, she replied too quickly. Just weird vibes. Ivy too. I feel like they're pulling away. I chewed slowly. Swallowed. Maybe they're just seeing things differently now. Differently how? I met her eyes. Maybe they're realizing what you've been trying to convince them is brave is actually something else. Lena stared at me, mouth slightly open. She didn't argue. She just sat there, blinking. You think I'm selfish, she finally whispered. I think you're scared, I said. And I think you're trying to dress it up as freedom. She didn't respond. Not with words. But her fork stayed on the plate. And the music felt too soft. A few days later, I ran into Scarlett at a local bookstore. She was in the travel section, thumbing through a guide on Greece. When she saw me, she smiled like she was relieved. You always show up when I need an excuse to stop thinking, she said. Thinking about what? Everything, she muttered. Lena. Work. This trip I'll probably never take. She hesitated. Then, she's changed. You know that, right? I know. She keeps trying to make us validate her choices like they're revolutionary. Like breaking your marriage open is some kind of feminist protest. I arched a brow. You disagree? Scarlett gave a tired laugh. I believe in autonomy. I believe in choice. But Lena's not exploring. She's escaping. And she's burning everyone around her in the process. I didn't say anything. I didn't need to. Scarlett reached for the back of her neck and sighed. She's not going to stop until she's standing alone in the ashes. She's already started losing people, I said. She just doesn't realize it yet. Scarlett looked at me then, long and deep, and for the first time, I saw something like regret flash in her eyes. Regret that she ever let Lena control the narrative. Regret that she believed it for as long as she did. Madison and Ivy talk about you, she said softly. Not just lately. Even before this. They'd never admit it, but you've always been the anchor. The quiet one. The good one. I smiled. That's generous. No, she replied. It's honest. I walked her to her car and watched her drive away, knowing full well she'd go home thinking about the conversation for hours, maybe longer. It wasn't manipulation. It was truth. And truth had a gravity of its own. Lena confronted me that night. She came into the room while I was folding laundry, hair pulled back, robe tied around her waist like armor. I feel like they're turning on me, she said without preamble. Who? My friends. Our friends. I stacked a folded towel. Why would they do that? I don't know. Something's changed. I didn't argue. Didn't comfort. Just waited. Are you saying things to them? She asked. No, I replied. But maybe they're watching. Watching what? You. She looked down at her feet. And for the first time, I saw something I hadn't seen in her since this all began. Fear. She turned and walked out without saying another word. And I finished folding the laundry. Because that was the difference between us now. She needed the world to approve of her choices. I just needed to keep being the kind of man who didn't have to explain mine. Scarlett showed up on a Thursday. No call. No warning. Just the sound of the doorbell echoing into a house that had grown quieter than I remembered. When I opened the door, she looked different. Not dressed up. No mascara. No heels. Just a hoodie, leggings, and eyes that looked like they hadn't closed properly in 3 nights. Do you have 5 minutes? She asked. I stepped aside. She walked in like she didn't trust herself to stay standing if I said the wrong thing. I poured tea. She didn't touch it. We sat in the living room, a few feet apart. She stared at her hands, flexing and curling them like she was holding onto something too tight. I'm not here to gossip, she started. I said nothing. I'm not here to talk about Madison. Or Ivy. Or Lena. Still, I waited. I'm here because I think I got caught in a story that isn't mine. Her eyes lifted. She used to be my closest friend. Lena, you know that. We used to talk about everything. But lately, it's like she's been performing, not living. Like this whole open relationship thing is just another way to audition for some version of herself she doesn't even like. I sipped my tea. And where do you fit in that? That's just it, Scarlett whispered. I don't anymore. She stopped asking how I'm doing. Stopped listening. It's like the only thing she cares about is proving to everyone that she's evolved. I studied her for a moment. Her face. Her posture. The way she kept glancing toward the hallway. Like the ghost of Lena might walk in any second. You don't have to stay in her orbit, I said. I know. You're allowed to leave people behind, Scarlett. Even if you once loved them. She closed her eyes at that. And then she started to cry. Quietly. Not the dramatic kind. Just that subtle, soft leaking of sorrow that comes when your body can't contain the truth anymore. I reached out. Not to pull her in. Just my hand, steady, palm open. She took it. Her fingers were cold. The moment that followed wasn't planned. It wasn't laced with lust or revenge. It was small, tender. She leaned into me like she had no one else left. And when I held her, she didn't pull away. Her face pressed into my neck, and she whispered, "She doesn't even care who she's losing." "You're not the first," I said gently. She didn't ask what I meant. Didn't need to. Her breath slowed, and her lips found mine. It wasn't passion that guided us. It was relief. Loneliness finding its match. A truth made of 2 people who never meant to get here, but couldn't pretend they hadn't arrived. Lena came home 2 hours later. Scarlett was gone by then, but the air in the house was still warm from her perfume. Musk, vanilla, something soft. Lena sniffed the air when she walked in, nose crinkling. Did someone come by? I didn't lie. Scarlett. She set down her bag. Oh, what did she want? Talk. Tea. She okay? I nodded. Getting there. Lena didn't press, but she lingered in the kitchen longer than usual, wiping an already clean countertop. She could feel it, not in the words, but in the way the walls hummed slightly differently. The house was shifting, and she was no longer at its center. The next day, Scarlett texted me. "I'm not sorry. That was all." I stared at it for a long time and replied, "Neither am I." Meanwhile, Lena's mask started to slip. She came home early that Friday. No warning. No makeup. Hair damp, pulled back tight. She poured herself wine before saying a word. Then finally, she looked up and said, "Jaden ghosted me." I didn't respond. Just watched. I mean, not technically ghosted. He's just busy, working through some stuff. But he hasn't replied in 2 days. Not even a meme. A meme. That's how she measured intimacy now. I took a breath. "Sorry to hear that." She scoffed. "Don't pretend you care." "I do care," I said. "But I'm also not surprised." "Why not?" "Because he wasn't in love with you. He was in love with what you were offering. Something easy, exciting, and already borrowed." Her jaw tightened. "That's not fair." "No," I said. "It's not. But it's true." She set her glass down harder than necessary. "So now you're wise, huh? The Buddha of betrayal?" I stood, slowly, walked past her to the window, and looked out over the lawn we used to lie on together under string lights and cheap wine. "You know what hurts the most?" I asked. She didn't reply. "That you didn't fight for me. You didn't even ask what I needed. You just decided I'd understand." I turned. Her eyes were glossy. "I thought you did," she said, barely audible. "I did," I said. And maybe that was the problem. She picked up her glass again, this time sipping more carefully. Her hands shook a little. There it was again, not guilt. Isolation. She could feel it coming. Her lover, gone. Her friends, distant. Her husband, unrecognizable in the best possible way. She opened a door to be free and stepped into a room she couldn't escape. Later that night, I found a note in Scarlett's scarf, the one she left behind weeks ago. Tucked in the folds was a receipt for a candle, lavender cedar, and a quick scribble on the back. She made everything about her. You made everything feel safe. That was the difference. I folded it once, then again, and slipped it into my desk drawer, right next to the ring Lena stopped wearing. I used to think the hardest part of heartbreak was the leaving. Turns out, it's the staying, after everything's fallen apart, and one of you still walks around the house pretending the cracks in the walls are part of the design. Lena still hadn't said much about Scarlett, but she watched me more now, quietly, suspiciously. Every time I touched my phone, every time I walked in late from work, every time I laughed too long at a message, her eyes followed. She'd opened the cage, given me wings, told herself it was noble. Now she couldn't stop looking up, wondering where I'd gone. The final unraveling started with Fiona. She was Lena's level-headed friend, the one who rarely took sides, always had a bottle of Riesling in her purse, and kept the peace with careful silence. We hadn't spoken in months. But she called me late on a Tuesday. "Hey," she said, voice low. "Are you free this weekend?" "For what?" "Lena's throwing some sort of reset brunch and asked me to come. But I was hoping to talk before that. Alone." I leaned back on the couch. "Why?" "Because," she said, "I think I finally get it." We met at the small cafe just past the park, the one Lena always said was too hipster. Fiona was already seated, oversized sunglasses hiding the tired beneath her eyes. She removed them slowly when I sat down. "You've been patient," she said. "Too patient." I shrugged. Not sure patience is the right word. More like survival. She studied me. "You loved her deeply, didn't you?" "I still do," I admitted. "In some strange, weathered way." "She doesn't talk about you with love anymore," Fiona said. "She talks about you like you're a lesson she outgrew. But she doesn't see that she's the one unraveling." I didn't say anything. I didn't need to. She leaned forward. "And the others? Madison, Ivy, Scarlett, they aren't turning on her. They're just returning to themselves. It's like she ripped all of you into this storm, thinking you'd all sail with her." "She didn't think the boat would sink," I said. Fiona reached across the table and touched my hand. "Not flirtation, just warmth. Whatever happens next, you've already won." That weekend, Lena hosted her brunch. I stayed upstairs. She didn't ask me to join, and I didn't offer. But I could hear everything. The clinking of glasses, the stilted conversation, the way voices dropped when one of them stood to use the bathroom. By hour 2, it was unraveling. Scarlett was the first to challenge her, gently, but firmly. "I just don't understand what you want from us anymore, Lena." "What's that supposed to mean?" Lena asked, defensive. "You talk about liberation like it's a product," Scarlett said. "Like you're selling us something. But it's empty. You're not happy." Then Ivy spoke up. "You've been cruel to Ethan." Silence. Lena scoffed. He's not perfect either. No one said he was, Ivy replied. But he never tried to make us pick sides. You did. Fiona added softly. He let you be free. And you used that freedom to destroy your own support system. I imagined her face in that moment. Mouth half open, blinking rapidly, fingers curling around her glass like it might steady the shaking. Then Elise, Lena's yoga friend, not close, just orbiting, said the thing that sealed it. I ran into Ethan last week. At the market. We talked for 20 minutes, and when I left, I felt more seen than I've felt in months. The silence after that was thick, awkward, and then, the sound of a chair sliding. Someone leaving. Lena didn't follow. Hours later, she came upstairs. Didn't knock. Didn't sit. Just stood in the doorway with her arms crossed. You've been talking to them, she said. They've been talking to me, I replied. She looked like she might cry, or scream. Maybe both. I gave you everything, she whispered. I let you be part of this. I turned to her. Calm. Steady. You didn't let me do anything, Lena. You left the door open and expected me to stay in the cage. She laughed bitterly. So what now? You're collecting them all like trophies? Is that it? I shook my head. You still think this is about sex, isn't it? No, I said. It's about connection. Respect. Truth. She stared at me for a long time, waiting for me to flinch. I didn't. She left the room without another word. But the damage was done. The next night, Elise stopped by. Not for Lena. For me. I just wanted to say, I'm sorry, she said. I bought into her story. For too long. You don't owe me anything. She stepped closer. I think I owe you a drink. We sat in the living room, talked for hours, about travel, music, old memories from the early days of our marriage when Lena used to throw spontaneous dinner parties and laugh, without filters. Elise smiled, eyes soft. You used to bring her tea. Every time we were over. Like clockwork. She never asked, I said. But I learned how she liked it. There was a pause. Then, do you still make tea like that? I stood. Went to the kitchen. Boiled water. 2 cups. Served them just right. She took a sip. Closed her eyes. I get it now, she whispered. And when she hugged me goodbye, late, nearly midnight, Lena walked in. She froze. Elise froze. I didn't. I set down my cup, looked Lena in the eye, and said, she came for peace. You should try it. Elise slipped out quietly. Lena stood there in her silence. And I turned away, because that was the moment she finally saw it. I hadn't cheated. I hadn't lied. I hadn't begged. But the life she tried to blow up kept rising from the rubble. Without her, it began with a shattered glass. Not metaphorically, an actual wine glass, Lena's favorite one, the stem-thin crystal we got on our honeymoon in Lisbon. She slammed it against the sink. The crack echoed through the kitchen like a pistol. I didn't flinch. She turned, hand trembling, eyes sharp with something between rage and heartbreak. Are you going to say anything? I looked at her. Slowly. Carefully. About what? About Elise. About Ivy. Madison. Scarlett, she snapped. Do you want me to keep listing them? I set my book down. Closed it. Marked the page. No, I said calmly. I think you've made your point. She paced, barefoot on the tile, the silk of her robe clinging too tightly to her skin. They were my friends. Were. She froze. That word hung in the air like smoke. Do you get off on this? She asked, voice brittle. Is this your little revenge fantasy? Quiet. Thoughtful Ethan getting his turn at the wheel? No, I said. I didn't plan any of this. Oh, don't lie to me now, she said, laughing bitterly. You let it happen. You knew what you were doing. You could have stopped it at any point. I stood, walked to the sink, picked up the broken glass, carefully, slowly, and dropped it in the trash. I gave you exactly what you asked for, I said. She spun. You gave me permission to be discarded. That's not the same. No, Lena. You discarded yourself. I just stopped pretending I didn't see it. Her jaw clenched. Her fists did too. You let them crawl into your arms like they were owed something. You let them rewrite history. You let them feel something for you. And you let someone else's hands write poems on your skin while I lay awake pretending I wasn't dying, I said, voice still level. So let's not pretend one betrayal is cleaner than the other. She looked like I'd slapped her. Finally, truth had that effect sometimes. You were supposed to fight, she whispered. You were supposed to make this hard. I did, I said. In silence. In dignity. I let you go, not because I didn't care, but because I hoped you'd find yourself. And instead, she said, stepping closer, you let them replace me. I looked her in the eye. They didn't replace you, Lena. You left your space vacant. She backed away, like my words stung more than she expected. She touched the edge of the counter for support. I hate you, she whispered. I nodded. You hate what you lost. She turned, stormed into the living room, rage in every footstep. They all defend you now. They treat you like some wounded monk. Like you've ascended. Like you deserve to be worshipped. I followed. Not quickly. Just enough to meet her where she collapsed onto the couch. I didn't ask for any of that, I said. I never spoke ill of you. Not once. She blinked fast. That's the worst part, she muttered. You were good. You are good. And it makes me feel like the villain. I sat down across from her. You're not a villain, Lena. You're just selfish. And scared. She exhaled sharply. I wanted freedom, she said. No, I replied. You wanted consequence-free validation. She looked at me again, and there it was. The mirror. Not the one on the wall. The one I'd become. The one she couldn't stand to look into anymore. Because it didn't distort her. It showed her clearly. Unfiltered. Naked. Alone. I never stopped loving you, she said, barely above a whisper. I know, I replied. But love without respect is like air without lungs. She started to cry. Soft at first. Then deep. The kind that curls your body and leaves you breathless. I didn't go to her. I didn't hold her. Because the healing had already begun, for me. And hers hadn't started yet. Later that night, I sat on the porch, tea in hand, watching the leaves fall in slow spirals. Lena came out eventually, wrapped in a blanket, hair still damp from a shower. She sat beside me, didn't speak, just sat. For the first time in months, there were no games between us. No performances. Just two people on opposite sides of a life that used to be whole. I don't know how to fix this, she said finally. You can't, I replied. Silence. She nodded slowly. And that was it. No kiss goodbye. No tears on my shoulder. Just truth. Shared. And understood. The next morning, she started packing. One drawer at a time. No drama. No ceremony. She left her wedding ring on the nightstand. I didn't touch it. Didn't move it. Just let it sit there. Heavy. Honest. And final. She left without a goodbye. The kind of exit that feels both loud and silent at once. Her car pulled out of the driveway on a cloudless morning. Tires crunching gravel I'd once raked smooth before our sons learned to ride their bikes. I watched from the kitchen window. Not hiding. Just observing. Lena didn't look back. She wouldn't have known what to do if she had. It's been 3 months. The house is quieter now. Not emptier, just more still. Like it finally exhaled. Her scent no longer lives in the closet. Her mug's no longer next to mine on the drying rack. And the weight in my chest? It's gone. In its place, there's space. Not joy. Not yet. But peace. Something deeper. Quieter. Something earned. I didn't burn her bridges. She simply ran out of road. I still see Madison sometimes. Not often. We don't talk about that night anymore. Instead, she comes by with new books, helps me replant the back garden, tells me about her new obsession with woodworking. Her laugh feels lighter now. Unforced. Ivy stopped trying to explain herself. She came over last week with a 6-pack and a list of old movies she swore we needed to watch before we're too old to get the references. We didn't kiss again. We didn't need to. Connection was enough. Scarlett invited me to a gallery opening. Said she wanted to stand next to someone who didn't make everything about themselves. I wore a navy shirt, she said brought out my eyes. She wore heels that made her stand taller than she ever had with Lena. We danced once. Just once. And she cried into my collar during a slow jazz number, whispering, I feel like I finally understand love, and it terrifies me. I held her a little tighter. Not because I wanted her, but because I understood. Lena, from what I've heard, lives in a loft downtown now. No furniture in the living room. Just floor cushions, a soft rug, and her laptop, where she writes poetry that's probably raw, beautiful, and full of metaphors about freedom. I don't follow her socials, but Scarlett showed me a photo once. Lena at a wine bar, laughing too loudly, captioned, unapologetic, unchained, unbothered. But the eyes told another story. There was something behind the lashes. That flicker of realization she couldn't quite drink away. She looked like someone sitting in the middle of a party she threw for herself and realized no one else stayed. I didn't gloat. I didn't screenshot it. I just nodded and handed the phone back. I got promoted. Project lead. Something Lena once joked I wasn't assertive enough to pull off. Turns out, when you stop living in emotional survival mode, your brain works better. I work fewer hours now. I sleep better. I started running again. Not fast, but steady. My lungs feel cleaner than they did in my 20s. Some mornings, I pass a small pond just off the trail and sit down to drink water, let my pulse slow, and watch the ducks make ripples with no destination. That's what healing feels like. Not a sprint, but a soft current. I let it carry me. People ask if I'm seeing someone. I say, not officially, because I'm not collecting people. I'm not filling holes. I'm not proving anything. The only arms I need to run into now are my own. Finally open, finally strong, finally mine. Sometimes Lena texts. Short messages. A link to a song she thinks I'd like. A photo of an old recipe I used to cook on cold Sundays. A memory that popped into her head at 2 a.m. I never reply with more than 2 words. Nice. Looks good. Thanks. And once. I hope you're okay. To which she sent back. I'm not. But I'm learning. That was the last message. She hasn't written since. I don't miss her. Not in the way I thought I would. What I miss is who I was when I still believed love was enough to keep someone from choosing chaos. I don't believe that anymore. Now, I believe in peace. In stillness. In growth that doesn't come from survival, but from space. I am not better because of what she did. I'm better because I chose not to rot in it. That's the quiet revenge. Not noise. Not conquest. Just living well. And letting them watch.